Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.
Roach, and I listen to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast.
Yes, Kimar is right. You're listening to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. Welcome to another edition. Welcome to another episode. My name is Machel St. Patrick here, one half of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. And we're recording the long-awaited ODI video. People said to me, Mash, we can't hear from you. What's going on? You don't want to comment on the ODI victory the other day where West Indies defeated South Africa. I didn't even, how many runs did we defeat them by? West Indies defeated South Africa by 48 runs. And you know what? It was a momentous victory. It was a big victory. I just didn't have time to do the video until now. And of course, some of you will say, but Mash, come on, you're recording this on the eve of the third ODI between South Africa and the West Indies. Why wait till now? Well, based on the title that I'm giving this one, I'm calling this one West Indies Stand on the Cusp of History. How often in the last decade or the last 20 years can you say West Indies stands on the edge of making some history, and good history at that? I looked at the West Indies record. I don't think we've ever beaten South Africa in an ODI series. Of course, some smart ass is going to now say to me, oh, well, actually, we did back in da-da-da-da. But unless I'm mistaken, not even in the Caribbean, we certainly never beaten South Africa in South Africa when it comes to an ODI series. And unless I'm mistaken, every time South Africa have come to the West Indies, they've whooped us as well. In ODI cricket. So we stand on the cusp of history in terms of we could potentially win an ODI series against South Africa for the first time since their readmission. But we stand on even bigger history than that, and let me explain why, or bigger significance than that. I'm going to present you the 5 key talking points coming out of that second ODI between South Africa and the West Indies, and looking forward to the next ODI, the third ODI, whenever you're listening to this. Hopefully most of you listen to this before the match starts. Maybe you'll listen to it as the match is going on. But I've picked out the 5 key talking points that everybody should pay attention to. And the first one, like I say, as I started the video, is about history being made. Should we win against South Africa in the third ODI, that would be our first ever ODI bilateral series victory against South Africa. But more importantly than that, on the 20th of March, 2023, as I record this, West Indies have not won an ODI bilateral series against anyone not called Netherlands, Zimbabwe, Afghanistan, or Bangladesh since 2007. Are you not hearing what I'm saying? That means it's been 16 years. 16 years since West Indies won an ODI bilateral series. Some of you will talk about the tri-series. No, because we didn't even win that. We got to the final, but we didn't win it. So it's, oh, no, I've got it wrong. Because some of you will say, what about Sri Lanka in 2021? Okay, fine. We have to count Sri Lanka in 2021 because that was actually quite significant. But if I, look at me butchering my own stats. But the fact is still valid. We haven't beaten anybody in an ODI series not called Netherlands, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Zimbabwe, and Sri Lanka once in 2021 since 2007. And that was England back in 2007. I think when Santoki and I have spoken at length in the past about the fact that between the years 2015 and 2019, West Indies won 0 ODI series anywhere in the world, right? Not at home, not away, etc. I don't think people fully understand just how weak of an ODI side we are. And that's why the victory against South Africa in the second ODI was so significant, because we rarely win. Even if I go back over the last 2 years, this has been our record in the last 2 years in ODI cricket. In March 2021, we beat Sri Lanka 3-0. which was our first quote unquote major bilateral series victory, in the sense that it wasn't Bangladesh, it wasn't Afghanistan, it wasn't Zimbabwe. So we beat Sri Lanka 3-0. After that, we then lost 2-1 to Australia, and that was, with respect, that was effectively an Australia B team. We lost 2-1 at home to them. We lost 2-1 at home to Ireland. We lost 3-0 away in India. We then went to the Netherlands and won 3-0 in the Netherlands, a series we were expected to win, a series we should have won. And again, but it's worth noting that I was there. For those of you who follow the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, you know I was there. I covered that whole series. I went to all of the games. And you will know that that Netherlands side was a weakened Netherlands side at that. They didn't have their best players, or all their best players. A lot of them are playing in English county cricket or in the English domestic system. So we beat the Netherlands 3-0. Then we went to Pakistan, lost 3-0. Bangladesh came to the Caribbean, lost 3-0. New Zealand came to the Caribbean, lost 2-1. When we look at the West Indies performance against South Africa in the second ODI, that's why it was far more significant than people potentially have realized. And yes, there will be some naysayers. There'll be the doom talkers who will say, come on, Mash, that's a South Africa team that didn't have Rabada, it didn't have Nortje, Markram wasn't playing, etc., etc. And all of that's right. All of that's right. I'm not going to try and pretend that we beat South Africa's top side. I think South Africa's priority in terms of ODI cricket will be making sure they beat the Netherlands so that they don't have to go into the World Cup qualifiers that we are likely to have to go into. So yes, it wasn't South Africa's tip-top 100% side, but you can only beat what's in front of you, right? And West Indies got the job done. When you're such a weak ODI side, getting the job done by any means necessary, whoever's put in front of you, that's all I care about. And that's all we can care about. We are in no position as a fan base to be saying, oh, but it's only that. Beat who's in front of you and keep it moving. And do you know why? Because winning is a habit. And one of the reasons why West Indies' record has been so poor over the last 16 years in ODI cricket is because we have got into a habit of losing, which is why we can even lose from winning positions. How many people who watched that second ODI, even when South Africa were, let me go back and find the scorecard, even when South Africa were 238 for 8, right? They were 238 for 8, like 97 runs behind with only 2 wickets remaining. There were still West Indian fans in that situation who would have thought, yeah, we can lose this one still. And it was only, put your hand up. Obviously, you can't metaphorically put your hand up or put your hand up as you're watching this. I bet for a lot of West Indian fans, it was only when Temba got out in the 42nd over and the score was 287 for 9 at that stage. And South Africa were only, I think, 40. How many runs away were they? They were 48 runs away at that stage. That was the only point I think that every West Indian fan realized, oh, we can win this match. And that's what happens when your side is in a habit of losing, that you think we can lose from even the most winnable of positions. But like I say, big up West Indies, and let's hope they can carry on this form. Let's hope they can keep this habit into the third ODI. If recent performances are anything to go by, and by recent, I mean anything over the last decade plus, we will lose the third ODI. But I hope for the squad, and I hope for Shai Hope as the new ODI captain, and I hope for the team, for Andre Coley and everybody behind the scenes, that they can pull this off. So that's the first talking point, the history and the record that they could potentially set here, or new territory they could mark here. Second talking point, Shai Hope. So I caught a lot of flack during the first ODI because at one point in Shai Hope's innings, I think he got bogged down. He got bogged down. I think he was like 70 something off about 96 balls. And I put a tweet out. It was like 74 off 96 or 92 balls. And I put a tweet out and I said, this is a familiar situation for Shai, whereby he's creeping towards 100, but he's not accelerating. And the Shai Hope lovers came for me. And I've got nothing wrong with people loving Shai Hope. Listen, Shai Hope is a magnificent ODI player for us. That's not in doubt. And I think this is the problem with social media. People read the tweet. They don't look for any nuance. They just go for the... That's the problem with social media, right? The take I made wasn't even controversial. If you study properly Shai Hope's ODI innings, that is a familiar stage of his innings. We know he's going to get a century because, I mean, the guy's got 14 ODI centuries, right? We know he's going to get his century, but he's not quickening the pace as he's approaching the century. The very best ODI players up their run rate the closer they get. Like the more balls they face, the quicker their run rate becomes because they've been at the crease for a long time, right? And traditionally speaking, with Shai, he has shown that he struggles to increase his strike rate even as he gets into triple figures and even though he's been there for a long time. Now, pause. Obviously, some of you listening to this will say, but Mash, that's not his role. Shai's got a different role to everybody else in the team. He's the anchor, whether he's batting at the top of the innings or now when coming in at number 4, whether he's batting in the middle order. Shai is there to shepherd the whole innings. Hear all that. I hear that. And he did his job like he always does his jobs. Sorry, not always, but mostly does his job. Drops anchor and makes sure he's there at the end and gives the license to the Purans, the Rodman Powells, and whoever else to bat around him and be a bit more explosive. I hear that. How many times have we won doing that, though? Somebody in our Discord channel, and if you're not a member of the Discord channel, I'll put the description, I'll put the link to the Discord channel in the descriptor below. But somebody in the Discord channel, whilst we were all watching the game, said something like, Shai Hope's hitting another century. He's going to lead us to victory. And I'll admit that I said, no, Shai Hope's century just ensures that we won't be embarrassed. I'm not trying to slander Shai Hope. The point I'm trying to make is if you actually look at our history in ODI cricket, how many times does Shai hit a century? So he's got 14 ODI centuries. Go and do the stats. I won't give you any help. I won't give you any help. You might want to do it whilst I'm talking. You might want to do it after this video is finished. Go and pull the stats and tell me how many times have West Indies won a match after Shai Hope has hit a century. This isn't Shai Hope slander, people. It's just about me trying to give some context to articulate the point as to why I said that it's a part of his game that he still needs to work on. And yes, everybody will say, but Mash, the other 10 players, we should be paying more attention to what they're not doing than paying attention to the one guy who does produce. Yes, I agree. But no one is above a level of constructive criticism. I pulled some data for everybody to try and overstand what I'm trying to say. In Shai's last 50 ODI innings, the last 50, he has only struck at a strike rate over 100 3 times. I pause because I want people to let that marinate in their head. And I pause because Shai's our best player. That's not in doubt. But should your best player in ODI cricket only be able to go at a strike rate above 100 3 times in his last 50 innings? Now, in that time, I was like, how many hundreds has he hit in that time? He's hit 800s in that time. So in Shai's last 50 innings, he's scored 800. So he's averaging 100. How many is that? Let me do some quick maths. He's averaging 100 every 6.7 innings or something like that. So let's just call it 6 for argument's sake. Every 6 innings, we're expecting Shai, or he averages getting a century. But only 3 out of those 50 innings has he gone at a strike rate over 100. Go in the comments below. As you're watching this, go in the comments below and you tell me if you think that's good enough. Or you tell me if you think I've got a point that there is a level of constructive criticism to be had to say, Shai, you're a bad boy. You're our best batter. We respect you. We give you your flowers. It's a great start to your captaincy. You're always delivering in ODI cricket. You're one of the world's best in the format. But is that strike rate sustainable? Or, because here's me always trying to be nuanced, or do we just say, well, boy, it is what it is. It is what it is. We're not strong in this format of cricket. Let Shai do what he does because it works for Shai. It helps us put a total on the board, and we just have to wait for the other batters to try and do something so that Shai can be supplemented and we can get more victories. I don't know, people. That's the argument. That's the second talking point. Get at me in the comments below. And actually, the second talking point nicely leads into the third talking point. What should we be expecting from the other members of the top 6? So against South Africa, we made 335, which is a rare score for us, you know. It's rare that we make a big score in ODI cricket. So 335 was I thought that was about par. I thought we'd actually left at least 15, 20 runs out there. Okay. Minimum. The other scorers, Brandon King, 30 of 29, Carl Mayers, 36 of 26, Nicholas Pooran, 39 of 41, Rovman Powell, 46 of 49, Shamar Brooks, duck. Obviously, Shai Hope scored 128 off 115 deliveries, and he really cashed in at the back end. So I get it. Shai actually paced his innings correctly because he did at the back end what I'd like to see him do more often, right? Given how long he's been at the crease. Now, the question mark is this, and again, get at me in the comments below. How much should the other batters be contributing? We made 335. Who of those? So King 30, Mayers 36, Brooks duck, Pooran 39, Powell 46. Powell was the second top scorer with 46 of 49 balls. Of those remaining 5 players, whose contribution did you look at and go, yeah, that's fair enough? Now, hear me out. You're going to say this is scandalous. Shai made an unbeaten 128. I would argue that King getting 30 of 29. Sorry, let me just go again. King got 30 of 29. Mayers got 36 of 26. Pooran 39 of 41. Powell 46 of 49. Forget Brooks for a minute. Those 4 batters to me, hear me out, kind of did their job. Hear me out. King and Mayers got us off to a lightning start. That's probably why Shai Hope didn't open. I think they probably wanted Hope in the middle order to also deal with spin later on in the match. But also they know, because King and Mayers are the T20 openers, that they can probably get us off to a flyer. When Mayers got out, it was 67 for 1 off 8 overs. King and Mayers, for me, did their job. They got us off to a flyer. When Pooran came in to partner Shai Hope, where is it? Let me find it. Let me find the partnerships stats. Let me just find it, people. I want to make sure I've got the right thing here. Pooran and Hope put on a partnership of 86 runs from 81 balls. Hope and Powell put on 80 of 83 balls. Holder and Hope put on 42 of 41. My point I'm trying to make is the openers got us off to a fast start, 67 of 52 balls. And then Pooran and Powell kept things ticking over at a run a ball while Shai wasn't. And it allowed Shai to just play his natural game. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying going forward that we should always accept Pooran getting 39 and Powell getting 46 and King getting 30 and Mayers getting 36. I'm not saying we should always accept that. But I am saying that in those innings where Shai makes his obligatory century, if the others are going at a run a ball or more, I think they're actually doing their job. As long as Shai bats till the end. More times than not, if West Indies do that, they'll always post a score of around 315, 320 plus. Get at me in the comments below. Let me know what you think. 4th talking point. What's the point of Yannick Cariah? Let me drink my juice. Why on earth is Yannick Cariah? Yannick Cariah didn't bat. He was number 11. Now, I find this utterly bizarre. Let me find Yannick Cariah's stats. So Yannick Cariah did not bat. Akil came ahead of him. Alzari came ahead of him. Odean Smith came ahead of him. And I get it. People are going to say they're more explosive batters. But just listen to this, people. In first-class cricket, Yannick averages 34 in first-class cricket. Yes, I know this is ODIs, people. And obviously some people are going to go, Mash's strike rate. Sorry, not 34. Sorry, I've got that wrong. That's with the ball. In first-class cricket, Yannick averages 28, right? In List A cricket, Yannick averages 30. How comes now? Some might say, "Oh, that's it just shows the depth to our batting that Yannick Cariah can be an unused batter and be down as number 11." Shouldn't we be putting a bit more respect on his name? Yannick's got 5 first-class hundreds, and 12 first-class 50s. This isn't some dunce with the bat, right? So, like, what are we saying for Yannick Cariah then? Are we saying that he's there to be a bowler? Now, these are his bowling stats across his career. First-class cricket, he's got 59 wickets in 73 matches at an average of 34. In list A cricket, he's got 38 wickets in 30 matches at an average of 24, economy 5.1. What's his role? What is Yannick in the side to do? Okay, yeah, obviously you're gonna all go, Mash, come on, he's a leg spinner. Yeah, I know. But in the match against South Africa, Yannick bowled 5 overs, 1 for 47, economy 9.4. Now I get it. It's leg spinners always going to go for licks, and obviously we know Hayden Walsh has fallen off and so on and so forth, and they're trusting in Yannick Cariah. There's an argument to say at least they're trusting in the leg spinner to do his thing. But is Yannick Cariah really in our side to bowl 5 overs and be an unused batter at number 11? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And I would love to know what discussions are going on behind the scenes in terms of what Yannick's role is to do. Like, is he a floating batter? Does he bat if loads of wickets have fallen in clusters? Like, say we're 60 for 5. Would you put Yannick Cariah in then? Is he a luxury because you can put him in when you need him to the point where he can be an unused batter at number 11? But if he's in the team to be a leg spinner, why is he only bowling 5 overs? Now, obviously, some will say, but Mash, he took licks. Of course, you're not going to let him bowl his allocation. But it goes back to the original point. What's Yannick Cariah in the side to do then? What's his role, people? Get at me in the comments below. What's Yannick Cariah's role? And that's not me saying he should be dropped. I want to see him play in the third ODI as well. You lot know where I stand on the leg spin thing. If you're going to play a leg spinner, trust them. Don't do him dirty like we did Hayden Walsh, where he's in, he's out, he's in, he's out, he's in, bowls 2 overs, doesn't bowl anymore. Then he's out, then he's back in. We destroyed Hayden Walsh's confidence, as far as I'm concerned. We, West Indies, did that. Regardless of his form, we contributed to that. So now Yannick Cariah's in there. We've got to give him a run. But I'm just questioning if we know how we're utilising him. And then finally, my final point coming out of that second ODI, and something that I'm looking for us to think about going forward, and I don't know if we'll make any changes for the third ODI. We are still, in my mind, a pace bowler short. Now, I know Shannon Gabriel is on the bench. I personally believe that in a bilateral series, you should experiment. South Africa have experimented against us. Rickleton's in the side. De Zorzi's in the side, for example. Kurtz's got his goal. Okay, they've given some people a go in this ODI side because it's a bilateral. It doesn't mean anything. There's no points on the line. South Africa's importance will be Netherlands. Our importance will be the World Cup qualifiers. If we do not use, just going to use this as an example, if we do not use Shannon Gabriel in the third ODI, what have we learned then? Why did we pick him in the ODI squad? Why did we take him on tour if not to give him a game to at least have a look? Obviously, he had a really good Super 50. Dean Smith had a really good Super 50. But, and it's a bit of a contradiction to my first point. My first point was we stand on the cusp of making some history here, beating South Africa in a bilateral series for the first time ever since readmission, beating somebody major in ODI cricket since Sri Lanka 2 years ago, but more importantly, England in 2007. So I get it. There's some significance on the line here. But you also have to weigh that up against working out or finding out what does and doesn't work. So remember in our squad, and I'm not saying they must all get a game, but if Chase doesn't get a game, if Carty doesn't get a game, if Shannon Gabriel doesn't get a game, why were they picked in the ODI squad in the first place? If Romario Shepherd doesn't get a game, why did you take them? Now, some of those players are going on into the T20 series, so maybe they'll get a game then. But if Gabriel doesn't play, why was he picked? And I focus specifically on Gabriel because when you look at the West Indies bowling, remember, South Africa lost by 48 runs, but they were bowled out with 8 overs to go. Some will say if they hadn't thrown away wickets, others will say if we hadn't bowled well, pick whichever one you want. But they would have won that match otherwise, right? They were well on track in terms of run rate. They didn't have to do anything crazy. I certainly think some of their batters should question their dismissals, right? But just listen to our bowling figures. Alzari Joseph, 8.4 overs, 3 for 53. Jason Holder, 7 overs, none for 45. Carl Mayers, 6 overs, 1 for 40. Akil Hussain, 10 overs, 3 for 59. Yannick Cariah, 5 overs, 1 for 47. Dean Smith, 5 overs, 1 for 40. Now, the two best bowlers in that are the two bowlers who have consistently performed for West Indies in ODI cricket over the last year and a half. Alzari Joseph, Akil Hussain. They picked up 6 wickets between them. That's nothing new. They've been doing this for the last year to year and a half. They've been consistently putting in good performances. So we know what they can do. My question is, who's our second pacer? Who's our second potential enforcer with the ball? Jason Holder, with respect, is a medium pacer, right? Carl Mayers is a swing bowler. Are you expecting Holder and Mayers, when we get to World Cup qualifiers, to bowl their full allocation? Maybe Holder, definitely not Mayers, unless the conditions suit him, right? So then you have to think about, so who's your third seam? If Holder's going to bowl his full allocation and Alzari bowls his full allocation, who's your third seamer, if it's not a spinning deck, that can bowl their full allocation? Odean only bowled 5 overs in that match. Do they trust him? This was the same question marks I was raising last year when I did videos about our white ball team. Do they trust Odean to bowl a full allocation? And this is why I'm saying, are we going to play Shannon Gabriel in the final ODI? Because if we don't, what have we learned then about our pace bowling reserves? Are we intending to go into the World Cup qualifiers with Alzari Joseph, Jason Holder, Carl Mayers, and Odean Smith as our pacers? And if we are, you the fans, you the supporters of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, you the West Indies fan base, do you think that's going to be good enough? Do you think that is a good enough pace attack? Not just to deal with World Cup qualifiers, but say we even got out of the World Cup qualifiers. Do you think that's the type of pace attack that you take to India? Joseph, Holder, Mayers, Smith. I don't know. Like I say, I'm not pretending I've got the answers. I'm just saying it's a talking point. Listen, people, those are the 5 key talking points. Actually, before I finish, didn't even mention Romario Shepherd. Now, obviously, we've seen Romario Shepherd get licked down in the past in ODI cricket and T20 cricket, in fairness, at times. We've seen him get licked down. But again, it will raise the question, who's the better pace option? Him, Odean, Shannon? And if they don't play, what have we learned? If Romario and Shannon don't play, what did we learn then? How further along are we in the development if we don't give them a chance to either prove to us, particularly Shannon, that they're the person we should try and put some faith in? Anyways, people, we won't know if we don't try. That's been 5 key talking points coming out of the second ODI. Apologies for not doing a video earlier on, like say time constraints, this, that, and the other. But I've given you 5 really interesting talking points there. As ever, like, share, subscribe to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. We're still on that road to 5K. Last I checked, we were on 4,310 subscribers to the YouTube channel. We recently hit 11K on our Twitter channel. You can find us on Twitter at Carib Cricket. You can find us on Instagram at Carib Cricket. And lastly, if you'd like to support the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, head to www.patreon.com/Carib Cricket. And for as little as $1, $2, pounds, rupees, whatever your currency is, you can become a supporter of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. All the descriptions will be below: the Facebook group, the Discord group, etc., etc. So get in that description below if you'd like to use that as well to find where we are. And lastly, our website, www.caribbeancricketpodcast.com. That's where you'll find the links to everything. I've been Machel St. Patrick Hewitt, one half of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. Thank you and good night.
We rule the cricket world. Now the rules seem coming.
Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.